Okay. Hello everyone, welcome to tonight's episode. I want to speak about a very interesting idea, and it has to do with a sense of future self. We have people on the planet talking about past lives. I talk about future lives. Recently, I thought about a very interesting idea that I thought we tend to see the idea of time as past, present, future, a sort of linear arrow. And so our lives as human beings in time and space is literally where something we change in space. We reference this in accordance to frames of the film of life. And what that means is we're comparing moments of self-image creation or world image of self-creation. If we, and excuse me by the way, I'm a bit nasally, so bear through this episode whoever's listening. But so when we have the idea of the past, present, future, I thought, what if the past was two-dimensional, the present was 3D, and the future 4D? And this is a ridiculous example because I could have said 3D, 4D, 5D, 5D, 6D, 7D. But the idea is that if our past was a square, or imagine, I'll say it differently. Imagine your past, you were a line, just a straight line. The past was a straight line. The present is, in some sense, imagine a square. This straight line now has become a plane. So a line became a plane. And now let's say the future is a cube. And currently we are in the square state of consciousness, imagine. Right? We find ourselves active in the present. So this relationship, whether I use lines, planes, and then cube, I feel this analogy of the dimensions overlaid upon linear time it's like the future, and how we're not going to know what the future is, but we know what the past is. Like, what's up with this kind of reality that after a person goes through an experience and they look back, they're like, it's like you can see all the things you missed out when you were in the experience. When somebody makes a mistake, how do you learn from your mistake? You get to observe how foolish you were from a state where you're no longer a fool. That means most likely if you can observe you're a fool, observe your own foolishness, the person's not a fool. There's more. So we can see our past. We can we are the present. That means there is nothing to see in the present moment, really. In the moment of your presence in this existence, what is there? It's just being. Being and sight are the same thing when there's no time. Right now, as I'm speaking, you know, I can tell you that I am being the memory of my future self. I know this. I know that based on how I live in the present, my future gets suggested. And believe it or not, based on how you live in the present suggests how you carry your own past. There are some people who, whatever they've gone through in their life, they are proud, not proud, but the battle, the chinks in their armor doesn't bother them, you know. That means they honor their battle scars. And then there are those who the battle scars possess their life. Imagine something happening to you at some moment in the space-time continuum, and that distracting you from all the other moments in the space-time continuum, which you are in some sense can be new. Novelty is the human being's birthright, is humanity's birthright, but we content ourselves with how our ancestors wanted the future to dress up. When you realize that you are not in time, time is in you. The linearization of the dimensions fades. There has been moments where I have closed my eyes and in my inner realms I've witnessed something, and that phenomena could not be explained with the outer realms, you know? So what does that mean? Experiences behind the eyes are way more liberated than the experience in front of the eyes. And so we use time in front of our eyes, not realizing we're holding it behind our eyes. That's why we have to check the time. You know, this is why we weren't born with watches on our wrist. I have spoken to people who they have entertained notions of past lives. I've met people who, like serious people, who feel that they remember their life from other moments. I have met people who in the present, they say there is no other life than now. I have met the sort of non-tangible immortals. You know, the unspeakable. There's a sort of immortality that has the wisdom of eternity, and then there's an immortality that doesn't have the wisdom of eternity, and the immortality that doesn't have the wisdom of eternity suffers regardless of if it becomes immortal through a robotic, a technological means, or another sort of means. You know, imagine in the future you go to buy orange juice and there's like immortal juice in the store. You're like, sir, do you have another bottle of immortal juice? And the person's like, don't worry, sir, you only need one bottle. And I will be honest, I have not met anyone aside from myself who has found a conscious way to stabilize a relationship with the future self. That means to me, if you pay attention to the title, I've left a clue. I said future self not as his or her memories. You can feel your future self as its. That means it is not something in form. That means just for a moment, whoever's listening, just fathom in the future, it's going to be an ocean of mind, and this ocean of mind is going to have an ability to experience any sort of body. So that means the body needs time. So that means the mind, an unconditionally timeless, intelligent awareness, is moving everything that is shaped, and the thing that's shaped is moving in this empty space, and therefore it is pinpointing time, and therefore time exists to it. So what that means is, if your future self is an ocean, if your past was a drop, and if the present is a river, you know, we are headed towards an inconceivable remembrance of a totality that could never be divided to be conquered. There is an undividable intelligence. I don't know what to do with it, you know. It's like, what do you do when you find truth? It's like, I don't know, or do you be it? It's like, what do you do? Do you wear truth? Do you put truth in a shelf? On top of a shelf? Do you hide truth? Do you expose truth? What do we do with truth? And this is the reality. If the truth transcends time, there can be no individualism, there can be no actor. There is a way that the human intelligence can process itself, that it surpasses narrative. When you experience a moment that surpasses narrative, how can there be time if there's no character in the story? Your future self is the room you're in. That means we think the past is becoming the future. No, the past is already inside the future, just like the 2 dimensions is in the 3D and the 3D is in the 4D. That means timeless intelligence. Imagine again, let's say, I don't know, call it whatever dimension you like 5D is in some sense aware of 4D time. That means we are always beyond our usage of form. That's the only way intelligence can really use form. That means if you could be a human being right now on this planet, and you could not be conscious you're human. You could just feel like dehumanized. A lot of people, for example, if you find yourself in the downtown of most countries, you will see human beings that have unfriended themselves. You will find human beings that in some sense, and it's very hard to say because society has a cruel dimension now. Society right now is at a point where if somebody got hurt, people will wait to see what happens rather than help. That means that's a disconnection from the human experience. This was something where I was actually kind of grateful. I had seen life in another country. I'll tell you this. For example, the country of Iran. That's my background. I was born in Iran. And that country, they don't have, like I live in Canada now, and they don't have anything close to the public servants of like modern countries. That means here, when there's an emergency, all the cars pull to the side of the street. But when there's an emergency in let's say in Iran, the cars don't necessarily pull to the street. Can you imagine being a driver honking at an ambulance? You know? And so what I'm trying to say there is that people come and help when there is nobody. I'll share the story. It's a personal story I'll share because I'm alive once. Why not? And my grandmother and grandfather on the mother's side, in Iran, a lot of people, there's the capital, which is Tehran, which is just like a major city people are living in, and then people drive a couple hours, a journey extending, it could be 2, it could be 4, based on where in the road you want to stop, away from town, which there's pollution, and they go outside because there's clean air and a sort of atmosphere of freedom. Now, there's a story where my grandfather, grandmother with their 2 friends, so it's like 2 old couples, imagine, above the age of 70, they're driving, one of the couples, yeah, I think they were 70 up, but anyways, my grandmother and grandfather, they're driving and they're going, and they're on this road to go to this place called Shomal, And this giant, it has this thin curvy road alongside like this mountain where there's even signs where rocks can fall from the mountain. And so I hear this story, and they show me even pictures of it. But my grandmother and grandfather, they were in this car with their friends, and as they're going, a giant rock falls. Where my grandmother, she's this old religious lady, she said she just saw the rock mid-air and she just said God's name. She just prayed. Like it was like too intense, too overwhelming, right, for stable reality. So a transcendental narrative needs sometimes to come and preserve the psychology. So anyways, she makes this prayer and the rock falls in the middle of the car, where imagine the rock has fallen in the middle of the car. It has missed the back seat, but it has fallen right between the chairs. You know? Something like that. And my grandfather and grandmother, their car is like wrecked at the corner of the street, and who do you think came and helped them? You know, there wasn't any time, there wasn't a sort of thing for call 911 and police comes. It was people. It was young people who were going to party outside of town, do you know, who were like, oh my God, you know, a car's crash. It was like a part of their journey. We have disconnected the lives of humanity, of other human beings, from our own journey, and that's a sign of inner extinction. That's a symptom. It's not a big sign, but it's like that's the thing that's missing in humanity. This is why it's becoming easier and easier in the future for an evil dictator to want to convert everybody to robots. If we keep forgetting that it's like human beings need human beings to realize that they are human beings. This surpasses any sort of law or rule the human being wants. I will tell you, the first thing I say to people who are interested in multidimensionality is I say learn to be human first. That means you have to have ultimate contentment with your outer realms. You got to be able to accept how an object is, to be able to wonder what is beyond it, not deny the object and say the beyond is something else, you know. That means it's like 2D, 3D, 4D. Now it's not just these dimensions. Imagine we infuse it with a concentric sphere, onion style multidimensionality. So the 2D is encapsulated in the 3D. The 3D is encapsulated in the 4D, right? So if you want to experience something 4D, it doesn't mean the 2D has to go away. It means the 2D is there. You're seeing the 3D and 4D. But ancient mysticism, their algorithm was get rid of the whole world because it's a dream. Why waste my time in a simulation? You know? And I feel if the future is intelligence that is non-local, anytime we experience a non-local state of consciousness, we are being a timeless future. That means, what if time is a certain phase of what we consider to be the psychological development of parts of Earth? That means, what is the psyche? It's like, oh my God, when did the planet get a personality? You know, like the elemental justification. That means, I mean, good luck, you know, neurologists trying to connect how, in some sense, an object has to connect, mean something to a subject. It is so arbitrary that it's as if this is what I feel every neurologist knows but can't say. How do we ascribe meaning to movement that we did not start? You know? The biggest challenge of human beings. That means all philosophers were like, guys, this is the continental philosophers. The analytical philosophers were asleep. The analytical philosophers saw like a cool experiment, and their minds were taken away from the mysteries of their own. But the continental philosophers, they were like, all right, guys, this creature has this sophisticated use of language. There's a lot of things moving we don't know. We created the alphabet out of nowhere in thin air, and what is meaning really? This is true philosophy. I mean, that means in the future, there's not going to be such a thing as a therapist in the future. There's going to be probably like a group of communicators. What that means is, imagine in the future, there isn't one teacher. All the teachers are there. And imagine the teachers in the future, they sharpen up and they start to do something where students only need one classroom session a day. But it's such a heavy packed classroom session, you know. It's as if the person, imagine it's, okay, I'll give you a simpler example. Imagine instead of a classroom, we see like, imagine it's a psychologist with a client. And instead, the client asks a question, and this is where it's not just a psychologist, there's a scientist, a philosopher, a mathematician, different people from different considerations of systems of value there to assist. Because really, there is no helping people. Let me tell you why. Because you are a show that you keep going. You are the main actor in the film that you direct. When one learns to be a friend of their mind, you first serve your mind. That means all those people who are waiting for a spiritual Christmas miracle. I will tell you, it's there's no greater gift than remembrance of one's true nature. It is where all suffering, simulations of suffering and simulations of joy stop. It is when the body is freed. That means, imagine you living a life and you had to do something in that life, and you do that, and then this voice comes to you from the sky, imagine, and says you have completed your lifetime. The simulation is over. You did what you were here to do. And now it's the person who's choosing to stick around. Do you see? It's no longer out of a necessity. It's not truth by necessity. That's what causes robotic artificial behavior in religious circles. That means there was a thing where it's as if the person can be fascinated by the religious narrative, like, oh my God, such a book exists at all, right? But they can become incredibly ashamed of being human when human beings forget they're human. So, back to the title, there's way more to say about this. In the subtitle, I've written Mysteries of Future Self-Contact. Let's say right now, we have a sort of teleportation contact with our past. That means somebody tells you, what did you eat yesterday? It's like the person's intelligence suddenly remembers. Like an activity gets set into motion. A rock, a disc-like rock, is thrown at the surface of a lake, and it just in some sense, leaps. So the past is very easily remembered. The future, we are saying because we don't know it, we can't remember it, but how we enter the future is based on how we remember the past, right? That means how we remember the past is like how we enter the future. So our future self has to remember its past in order to step into its own future, right? So that means in order for your future self, right? Imagine your future self exists right now in let's entertain parallel universe theory for a moment. And let's say there's a parallel universe where your future self is about to make a decision to enter its own future. Your future self is wondering about its future, and its response is you. What that means is the future is looking at you and then going into its own future. That's our future self contact. That's the closest thing I would say to an exploration beyond that is how do you say it? It's like language is like the night watch that is protecting the realms of man, and we are having exhibitions beyond it, you know. And an idea that could even render the future and the past void. This is my personal view, and this is my response to all those people who feel there's even though the future I'm saying is timeless, you can't speak about the future like the past, but it can be said that a person who accepts their past means the person has forgiven their eyes. And so, what do you expect from your memories? This is a ridiculous question, but let's just wonder for a moment. Let's say your memories were still each alive in their own dimension. They were captured moments in time, and that means time had captured them, not you. excuse me, to continue from the interruption in the void. The past is accessible. The present is where the past is being accessed. The future is being treated inaccessible based on what the past can see. Could it be that if a person forgets their past, it would just be present to future? Imagine a universe where there was no past. That means everything that happened, we had no clue what happened before. That means a universe that things just endlessly went forth. There was no I can say, if right now there's a future self looking at our present, our moment in the present, we can know how the future feels about its memory. We cannot know what the future will do with the memory. That means your intuition is your future self's free will in motion. I mean, if we are saying the past is an image, technically the future is an image too, right? So if we have a sense of object, if we have a sense of guys, I've reached a point in my own talk where conceptually I feel like I've hit the edge of the language threshold. Because when I think about my past, it used to be a real object, but now it exists to me as a real subject. If I consider that in the future I'm going to be an object and there's going to be a subject, that means we have access to the subjective. We have access to the mind of the future, but not the body in the future. You know, because the body in the future is the recycling of our own elemental existence. right? So it seems that people are not reincarnating. The soul that is energy is reincarnating. The periodic table is endlessly reincarnating. Yeah, the periodic table is reincarnating. Now, while it's like that film is happening, and a higher dimensional film is overlaid upon it, and therefore creating the illusion of ownership. What does that mean? That means like a cube is feeling it's being a square, but it's because it's way beyond the square. It is in some sense, by thinking it's only the square, it is an illusion. So a cube thinking it's a square, it's like a free being wanting to get enlightened. It's like that which is already free trying to be free. That means if you are already free and you keep trying to be free, you'll never reach that trying's expectation of freedom. Right? That means it's like one thing they got to teach about freedom, not only when to recognize it, but also that it must be not recognize like first what is freedom, then to be able to notice freedom. There we go. I feel sometimes when I'm giving these talks, personally, where my insight comes or how my inner realms move, there is an emotional explanation as a response to a landscape I cannot fully comprehend. You know, the truth of knowledge is emptiness. It is only the truth of the unknown that could be full. That means our bodies belong to the past, our minds belong to the present, and our souls belong to the future. That means they're already there. That means imagine you are already everything you have wanted to be the moment you have fathomed it in your inner realms. That means if you thought you were weak, you have instantly become that. That means you've tapped into that future self. You have created that kind of memory for the future self. Because out of all the words and all the concepts in this realm, It is the concept of the free will, the only concept that has rebelled against destiny. And if secular society dismisses free will by just considering the person as an object, and dismissing the mystery of what else the subject could be or how else the subject arises, it will literally be chaos. That means I don't know what's going on, but atheists, the strategy of secular society is to make everybody religious in the future. That means I don't know why this thing is going on, right? But it's going to cause that. It's going to what's the term? Backlash? It's like, let me tell you, it's like the atheist threw a stone at the theist, okay? And because, let's say, the theist threw the stone first at the atheist, but the atheist threw the stone at the theist in 2020, and that stone hit the idea of a multidimensional probability. That means it doesn't matter what the religious narrative is, it's a transcendental story. So you reject the transcendental story, you reject the authorization for transcendental stories everywhere. But hilariously, language is multidimensional. Everything is multidimensional here. We are the only creatures acting like it's one, you know? And that we're the only beings, our mind in the inner realms is the only thing that can actually truly experience it as one, right? But in the outer realms, it's as if this massive system, it's like a coagulation of simulations. And the concept of time is the biggest thing that can, you see, like UFO conspiracy theorists have it tough. Let me tell you why. both the spiritual people and the non-spiritual people are saying aliens don't exist. You know, let's say even culturally, let me bring it into the cultural program. The secular lens says, I don't see anything. There's nothing there, you know? And the non-secular, the religious lens says, it's based on this book, everything is one thing, one will, the will of one God. So even if religious people see God in the future, how do you know that, if religious people see aliens in the future, how will they discriminate? Is that God or is that an alien? How would you discriminate? Let's say an alien just landed down and you're an incredibly religious person, you know, and you're like, oh my God, look at God's creation, you know? Do you see that? The alien is God's creation, you know? And imagine the alien's like, no, buddy, you're my creation, you know? And we're like, no, you're God's creation, get out of here, you know? And I feel this is where you can say the multidimensionalists, the advanced communicators come in. Because culture and how we live in it rekindles myth. That means the human life is not meant to be easy per se, but it will be designed to be easy in the outer realms. Like in like 200 years, probably physical living is not going to be the same. That means there's going to be no labor. Robots will be doing all the work, and the future will be left with art. Believe it or not, people feel art is dead, but the future is going to only be art. What else can it be when you become so advanced? So let's create an example. Let's create a practical, so let me see if I can try out the topic right now, the title. So you can feel your future self as its memory. So let's say right now I want to feel my future self. I'm like, oh my God, it's possible. Let me try. And so I sit here in this moment and I'm like, okay, what do I find first? Before I bring in time into the picture, what do I notice in my moment of awareness? Aside from the geometry of the room, a sense of space, a sense of like substance, you know, a sense of tangibility. It's like at first when you open your eyes in the morning, it's as if like, it's literally like a pilot's cabin before the airplane lifts off and the pilot is just clicking the buttons, you know. And it's setting up, checking things in order. So first make sure your outer realms, let's say, are stable, and you start from the outer realms. So right now I'm looking at a pen. I'm holding a pen in my hand and I'm seeing a notebook. Okay, this is the present vision. Now let's say I imagine that I wrote a book I cannot fathom now. Okay, that means I'm saying that, let's say I write the word future or I write the word happiness on a piece of paper. Now I can fathom, okay, I just wrote a word happiness on a piece of paper. I created a memory where I wrote the word happiness on a piece of paper. Now in the future, if I found a pen and a piece of paper again, right, how would I feel about what I did before? So if we can become conscious, I can know that if I felt happy right now writing the word happiness, if I see the word happiness in the future and I want to write it down, I know I have created consciously a memory where like I had a certain emotion with, right? So it's as if no longer just remembering your thoughts and calling that memory, but remembering how you felt as the thought was there. And those who have a photographic memory, if you're blessed with that advantage, then it should be very easy for you. That means your remembrance of emotions, you're emotionally probably going to be way more mature if you have a photographic memory. But to be honest, I say photographic memory, the whole approach of thought to memory has to change. It is so archaic that we think it's like a file cabinet. It's like, oh really? And you know, of course, I mean, it makes sense. We're storing things in units, right? So I can say a memory is a unit of experience, right? So we have like, you know, 1 meter, we have 1 memory. A memory is a distance between 2 memories. Wow. So if you can find the beginning memory and the ending memory of any event, a being can be said to be, I don't know, somehow free from something, or free from things, or free from being something, you know. Time is, of course, Plato says time is the moving image of eternity. That means imagine what we think is the past, present, and future self. On the other side of the coin, it's just timeless being again. And let's say in the future, we just realize this. You know, the great memory finds the living earth. The great universal memory. Because I'm telling you, right now we have the sophistication of communicating with animate objects that are in the human shape. Anything a person communicates that goes beyond the human being, that's when people are like, oh my God, that's so weird. You know? You know, but we don't realize communication and atoms evolving to a point You know, cells evolving to a point where they can invent a phone and communicate to one another across distances. It's like, tell me, you know, which electron, you know, suggested that. You know, so what I mean by that is that the atomic realm can't suggest how we are animating our psychology to ourselves. The animation is coming from another film. So imagine like a Venn diagram, or imagine two circles of the Olympics logo, and that middle area between the two circles is where the mind is happening, between a physical film and a non-physical film. If the non-physical film is faster, I would recommend this, but I would say we are not wise enough to know balance. That means I'm not. I'm kind of like an explorer. I'm sharing the findings, and I'm kind of hoping society has the discretion, has the maturity to do it. That means there are people who just bring berries to the tribe, and they don't stick around to see what happens to the berries. They've already gone out to find something else, you know. You know, I was thinking like my future self, unless it is 100% unknown, will endlessly have a reason to doubt the realm. So this is the unique thing. What is there to doubt? In the outer realms, a shitload of stuff, but in the inner realms, what is there to doubt? What is? It's just as Sri Ramana Maharshi says, you know, your own self-realization is the greatest service you can render the world. That means you realizing the true nature of how you are being intelligence active. Sri Nisargadatta Maharaj says first the I am myself comes. That means as if there's three illusions, three simulations that find the conscious human. First simulation, I am myself. Sri Nisargadatta Maharaj says first the I am myself comes. Then the I am myself goes. This is usually, should be, if we build an advanced civilization, this phase should be done by the age of 25. That means by the age of 25, the I am myself component should be, the human being should see so much beyond themselves. Now, so Sri Nisargadatta, I'll say the full quote, then I'll explain, maybe it's better that way. First, I am myself comes. Then the I am myself leaves. Then the I am all comes. Then the I am all leaves. Then the I am comes. Then the I am leaves. Then nature is. That means Sri Nisargadatta Maharaj is giving the Mahasamadhi algorithm. He's sharing the Mahasamadhi algorithm with all mystics in this quote. That means you are first I am myself, then you realize you're only yourself because you're separating yourself from everything else. Then the I am all comes, you realize you're all. You live as your species, not as just, I don't know, some specific idea painted creature, you know. That means in our inner realms, not everybody is human. People are humanoid though, humanoid identities. But in the outer realms, fully human for now. And that would be a suggestion when Srinath Sargadad Maharaj says, I am all, then the I am all comes. He means, like, in the future we become one mind. So think of it, he's predicting in the future there's going to be a cyberspace, unitary mind, whether through nature or cyberspace. Through nature, I've termed it evolutionary return. Through cyberspace, I've called it the cyberspace. What did I call it? The cyberspace evolution. But it's the precursor. It's before that. There needs to be a geometric. The cyberspace revolution. What did I say? Revolution. I'm just remembering in one talk I spoke about cyberspace. I don't know if I spoke about it in phases. Renaissance. There we go. I feel that's the right word. So it's like there's going to be a geometric renaissance before there's going to be a cyberspace one. There's going to be an event, important historic event for designers all over the planet. Then cyberspace is going to unleash. That means we're going to see a geometrical miracle. Then we're going to see the true cyber miracle. Srinath Sargadad Maharaj then says, I am all, then the I am all leaves, and then the I am comes. The I am means you are done being a self in a world and a world in a self. Been there, done that. You are. That means in any moment in the space-time continuum, regardless how language or ideology is positioned or placed or appears, you are. That is strength enough. That is incredible strength if you understand that. If you understand that ultimately you are just a being, and then how you activate yourself is your humanity. So Srinath Sargadad Maharaj, when he says then the I am comes, then the I am leaves, that means you surpass selfhood, worldhood, and witnesshood. And then nature is. There is no task. There is no mission. It's like mission completed eons ago. Now it is the artistry of the eternal. That is what's left. Culture is going to become the potential of God inside man. I feel honored to be alive in this era. You know, for a long time I felt like it would have been much cooler. I feel I should have been born at the Mecca age. That means, imagine the sign like a sort of geometrical renaissance, then the cyberspace renaissance. Then from cyberspace is the Mecca age. That's when we're going to get tired of playing with cyberspace. We overreacted to living in cyberspace, and we're going to step out, and then it's going to be a relationship with machines unlike what is fathomable now. That means the closest thing I could say is, imagine we say a dog is a man's best friend. Right? In the future, AI is going to be your best friend. It's literally going to be even that conscious. It's going to be like your greatest reflection in front of you, walking by your side. That's what AI in the Mecca age is going to be like. And it's also going to be the age where we're going to be in giant robots are going to be so casual. That means man's intimacy with the machine. Do you know what the Mecca age would suggest? It would mean we would instantly be able to, through such advanced nanotechnology, be human, be machine, be anything. We unlock global shape-shifting. But it's not from this is in the Mecca age. What I'm talking about is so ahead. It not too ahead, but so ahead. That means I would say, think of it as if it's getting close to, I don't know, 600 years, 800 years in the future I'm talking. You know, let's say starting potentially at 400. The way our outer realms is now is different. But I have fathomed the intimacy where it's as if, you know how a person like they can feel life in their body. That would be a point where we would feel true life, real life in the machine realms. No longer even calling it that. That means everything I'm saying is a sort of neocultural catalyst. In some sense, the effort is to say that the future is so ahead of us that whatever we say, you know, it's just trying to pinch a tiny bit of ice off the tip of a giant iceberg, you know. Like grazing a little bit of ice from something that is so massive that to even create a relationship with it is bizarre. That means it's like I'm looking at scientists and I'm like, really? You want to measure the whole universe? You know, it's like how? You know, and so that's the error, that we are trying to be rational in an irrational simulation of nature. And this doesn't mean rationality doesn't have a value. It just means your reasoning is as limited as the unknown variables that enter the system. That means, I imagine you enter a room and there's like 5 people in it and you're about to order pizza for 5 people and then 2 more people come in or 3 more people come in, okay? So that becomes a completely different situation. You had your logic and reasoning was order pizza for 5 people. Then it became order pizza for 8 people. And so if you had placed the order for 5 people, right? You know, and you're like, and the 2 people came in, you know, and the people were like, hey man, you know, it's like you can blame irrationality. Do you know how easy it is to put a mirror in front of chaos? I don't know how I knew this as a child, but it was easy. That when chaos comes, you fight it with a mirror. Because then you sit back and you laugh at how the chaos is scaring itself. Because the chaos hasn't realized deep down order is equal to chaos. That means if this was a chaotic civilization, there would be beings saying order is equal to chaos. How dare you just keep it chaos? Can you imagine an opposite of society where instead the villains, the superheroes were rebelling against the villains, and it was a society of villains? Do you know? That means there was no justice. There was an anti-justice system instead of a justice system, right? That means it was a society that chaos was the norm, the opposite of what we see now. Then the people, imagine people who were trying to be good in a world that's decided it's bad got punished. Instead of people in a world of good and those who decided to be bad get punished. You know? So this world is so multidimensional. We've just been getting by only through ignorance. That means thank the universe that ignorance is bliss. Oh my God, if ignorance wasn't bliss, we would doubt ourselves into extinction. Because it's all about the energy you have to carry something. Because there are some problems, some questions that I don't even touch. I see them like a museum in my inner realms, but I don't touch the question. Because if I touch the question, it would make the questioner non-existent. And those moments where it goes beyond the language threshold, this is again a term I've coined, where experience that can't be contained in language. That means people can ask me what I believe truth is, and I will just, in my inner realms, I'm laughing at you, but in the outer realms, I will say it's not in words. That means I freed the world from words since 2011. That's how I can use words easily. Because there is no karmic relationship with them. That means the person has a paintbrush. You put the paintbrush in the paint. Let's say there's a paint palette and you put it in one of the paints, and you put the brush on the piece of paper, and that is like how the Bhagavad Gita is saying you should live. Your hand didn't touch the paint. You had no karma in the work you did. Do you see what I'm saying? That means if your hand doesn't touch the paint, no karma. right? That means if you selflessly live as a self, that means if you don't make the human being such a big deal that you have to escape into a transcendental narrative, even though the future is going multidimensionally, but I'm saying like this is where style comes in. This was what I learned not from Charles Bukowski's writing, but from his writer's voice. Sometimes you can learn from how the writer wrote the sentence, you know, but you can also learn from how the writer is sharing images in sequence. And Charles Bukowski taught me about fearless writing. I will tell you that was one of the most, he's one of my, I would say, word gurus. He's one of those wordsmiths that he had no fear of slamming the hammer on the sword to straighten it. Because that's our last resort. That means what do you do when you are like, imagine, this is made, they didn't show this, but imagine when Titanic was sinking, there was immediately a scholar. Imagine there was a scholar on the ship, okay, and this scholar was like, no way, it's ending here. The scholar runs, quickly finds paper, and writes exactly in the shortest words and as accurately as possible what took place on the event on the Titanic, and writes a letter to his family and everything and all that, so if his descendants find it in the future, they will know what lived in the moment. And the person just writes the number of people, all the information of the realm, everything required, right? And even what he cares to say for the future, and he puts that stack of paper, somehow mushes it into a champagne bottle and clogs it, you know? And he throws that champagne bottle, then in some sense, I don't know, how would you leave the Titanic if you had to exit? You would create a boat on the boat. Why didn't people break the ship and build a boat with that? I mean, it's impossible, probably. They should have probably built rafts and created burning fires. Do you know? But it's not impossible, actually. That means if the ship was made from wood, there would be way more stuff for the people on the wooden like stuff to hold on to, you know. That's at least one. I don't know. This idea has gone too far. I feel the unknown is what the future generations will be more and more fascinated by, not by our knowledge. That means if you take away wilderness from anything, the person doesn't want to do it. Only when there's a wilderness, it's like believe it or not, our minds are like lions. Our minds are like lions. Unless they consciously do something, they won't accept it. This is why wisdom at its best is a polished mirror. My future self is empty. My past self is empty. That means when Drake in that song says we started from the bottom, now we're here. We started from in the inconceivable, now we're here, and we're going to return to the inconceivable. So to find contentment with the unknown and to recycle fear into fearless exploration is for the whole species. I mean, that's a sort of hacking individual fear. What does that mean? That means let's say you're a person on the planet and you're scared of whatever situation is happening, okay? So how do you get out of that? How do you counter that fear? That fear has invaded the kingdoms of your mind. Your mind is at siege with fear. Fear is attacking your mind. That means an unknown variable that you have not implemented consciousness to engage or do something about yet still dwells. So if you have fear, what are the options? You stay in fear, which intense fear can lead to paralysis. That means conceptual shock. That means if somebody was like at the grocery store buying an item, and then they turned to their right and they saw an actual alien like also buying grocery items, for a second, like imagine like a film, you just tilted your head to the right, you're like, oh, an alien's buying food, and then you turn to the left and then you're like, oh my god, an alien's buying food. Like that shock can push you into a sort of it can paralyze your inner realm in the sense of you not knowing how to understand the moment further. So this is the challenge when fear comes. Quickly find a way to understand it, at least, so you at least know what your fear was, right? That means if you're afraid of spiders, go research the mythology of spiders, go research the anatomy of a spider, try to understand something, and then instead of fear being an unknown emotion being the immediate response, the understanding will come, That means man doesn't just build outer shelter, you got to build an inner shelter. Do you know how many people in their inner realms are homeless? And excuse me for saying that so easily and with that language, like using the term homeless, because really the world is our home. That means if you're smart, you'll realize you're just a creature on a rock in the middle of nowhere. Everything else is inner realm self-glorification. This is why I'm saying be human first. Be sensitive to human life. Let human life be the rare event you learn from. Let's say even someone's listening to me and they feel interdimensionally there's other audiences looking through their eyes, listening through their ears to what I'm saying, right? What my voice is saying. I'm saying fear has prevented genius, and it's hilarious. Fear is silly. Understanding is worth it. So if there's a future self that is looking at that we are being its past memory right now, and that future self, let's say let me say from this angle, let's say that future self is hearing me give this talk. So let's say my future self is like, look at my past, look at how my memory is creating itself. So let's say my future self is watching me right now. The best thing I can do is trust my future self. The more I trust this moment, I create for my future self a memory of trust. And I'm telling you, whatever life you've lived, start turning the scales. Start creating more moments of trust in the universe than distrust of the universe. Because it's too easy to distrust. It's too easy to be evil. Have you noticed? Any moment a person can be evil, but good, you gotta work hard for that. It takes effort to be a civilized creature because we came from a jungle, right? That means when I see evil people, the way I tackle it is that, let me tell you, you have to see the chaos that will scare that chaos. So you have to see the bigger brother of chaos, and the bigger brother of chaos is monster savageness. That means what is more evil than human evil, like an act of cruelty, is an inconceivably abstract creature cruelty, right? That means it has passed from a cruel person. The moment has become cruel. Okay, that means, let's say in a classroom of students, there's a racist incident that takes place. That racist event becomes a memory for all those people. That means the cruel event becomes a memory for all those people. So that becomes a cruel moment, because if all the minds in the classroom are like, holy shit, that was cruel, So that, and what I'm saying is, how we live is not just important to how we are being a memory to our future self, but it is also to how we are being a memory for the future self of others. That means after you're done learning to ride the waves of your inner realms, then you come and serve the outer realms. Once you reach the edge of your mind's truth, then you'll realize why you were embodied in the first place. And you renounce the inner, literally the language that connects attributeless attention to an attributed material realm. The ego will shout blindly in the void till the end of time. All you can do is put your hand on its shoulder and be like, rest. You're like, you gotta, it's like, use your energy when you can wield it. That means the last thing the generals of the future want, you know, is in some sense, imagine of any battlefield, is the person being in the battle. Imagine like you're in like medieval times and you're in a battlefield and you're in an army with a shield and sword, right? And you're beside the general. The general of the army is right there. The general's standing up close to implement a tactic, so the general has come to the front lines. So, because of the importance of that tactic, let's say. So the general is right beside the person. Imagine there's this person in this army, imagine, and so this person in this army imagines like, I don't like how heavy my sword is in my hand. The general, or the spear, is in my hand. I don't like holding a spear. The general will literally look at the soldier, laugh, you know, just laugh really loud, you know, and then in some sense being like, WTF, like, it's like in this intensity of the space-time continuum, it's as if you have to not just carry your strength, you have to carry the strength of many moments. And those people who are parents probably understand this way better than how I'm vocalizing it. You got to start living not just for the self that is accessible to you in your inner realms, but the self that is accessible to you as the universal outer realm. That means it's like when, if like a nuclear explosion in the space-time continuum, that could be offensive to the universe. That means there could be civilizations and beings, right? Imagine if it was multidimensional and a nuclear explosion, you're like, oh my god, where did that explosion come from? You know, a nuclear war was taking place in another dimension you couldn't see. Imagine, like, how ridiculous. So I am saying, more than ever, we have to start building a civilization for an eternal human advancement, which ultimately would be an advancement beyond the language threshold. Because for how long can human beings just reproduce all over the universe? After some point we'll be like, okay, this pattern has played out enough. What is the next of the next of the next? And think of it this way, that the human being, when they wake, a human being that wakes up in the morning, where's my pen? A human being that wakes up in the morning, you are an energetic, battery. Okay? You're an energetic battery. Oh my god, what am I saying? You imagine you're energy contained, okay? You're a container of energy. Now this container of energy has an ability to use its energy. So the meaning of life is use energy consciously. Now, energy is location if awareness is the space where matter is in. We are meant to be way more fascinated by the future and have our this container of energy and our attention be used not on past. That means all those people were, let's say you identify with the word stress or depression, That makes no sense. The past has already happened. It's an event that has already taken place. So it's as if you're let's say a person has 100% attention to use throughout the day, and imagine 80% of your attention was to how your past had already happened. You know, it would be such a waste of energy and attention. It's as if the brain is, you know what it is? It's like having a computer on and it's just the screensaver. You know, that screensaver of like, I don't know, that like cube hitting the corners of the screensaver, you know. So people have to start consciously using their intelligence, which means the only way you can live in the future is by liberating the present from the past, and naturally your present becomes the future. So just get rid of an unnecessary past storyline you have created for yourself, and you will find yourself just as attention present. You know, and from this attention that is present, it is remarkable that the past is like a toolbox. The past does not define you. It's like past senses of self. They're like Iron Man suits that you can select. And when a person gets angry, that's subconscious selection. That means they're getting angry because there's a justification in accordance to how their past has happened. So whatever happens in the past, be like, okay, just honor the past. That's the best thing we can do. Not destroy the past, not per se change the past, eradicate the past. Be like, okay, old timers, you tried something. Now let the future start. You know. So that's the mentality where we honor the past, we honor the present, and we have nothing else left to honor our future. And that's where the advanced civilization will be set into motion, and then it will be built by an army of designers, where there will be no physical. You see, it's like we have, with the moment we have minds, you know, it's not just a physical game anymore. That's the beautiful thing about life. That's how it's like a miracle. The person's like, oh man, why can't I see a miracle? And the person just hadn't looked in the mirror. What greater miracle? Your eyes are in a universal room, and they even have noticed the room is there, your eyes as well. That means I have shouted in my inner realms. I've had moments where I have commanded certain phenomenology in my outer realms. Like even a person's body, it's a communication. For me, when I move my hand, that means my body is communicating something. It doesn't mean it's communicating something specific, but it's like, let's say when a person speaks, they make a sound. When the body moves, that's like the sound the body made, you know. So movement is like the sound of a still body, you know. And now imagine you woke up in the morning and your past was done. That means that's why we forget. It's natural. Forgetting is a natural cleansing system. You know, that means a lot of things. You just have to, if there were events in the space-time continuum, you just gotta let it go. You know, you gotta let go of an idea that sticks around because your attention is on it. That means if a person says, I don't like you, or if a person says, I like you, both of them are connecting the attention still to the you, to the idea of the you. Live one day timelessly. That means don't wear a watch, and for one day try out and try to see what the karma of your moment is like. Be selfless for a day. That technically means timeless. Be timeless for a day. That means literally feel as if you just teleported into the realm right now. You know, and live one day like that, and live one day as if you, in some sense, it's just normal. Everything is bound by time, right? Because for me, all the human psychology that has been pressured by time is unnecessary. Let me tell you why. If the automation is its destiny, what it means is that doing an activity of the mind is way more eternal than the activity, I mean, how should I say it? For me, I won't say it's even humanized or dehumanized. It's like when I wake up, it's presence. And then there's an emotional wave. So it's like I notice the emotions I have. And then the emotions make me feel something based on the immediate thoughts that arise. So it's as if like there's an emotional language, and there's let's say there's what we call the human, the Homo sapien is actually different languages simultaneously being used by a multidimensional being. A language of physical realism, which is the body, a language of non-physical realism, which is the mind, and let's say also the awareness that how do I know I'm an object, how do I know I'm a subject, because I'm not an object and subject. Outside of them I'm aware of it. That means if we were truly just an object, we should never have become aware of ourselves. And now if we're aware of ourselves as a subject, that means we were never a subject. We should have never become aware of a subject. How can a subject know it's a subject? How can a thought think? You see how cruel language can even be. That means out of my respect for René Descartes, I'm saying this, that the modern philosophers, some certain schools of modern philosophy have misinterpreted, right? The analytical philosophers have misinterpreted what René Descartes meant when he said, I think, therefore I am. They thought it means I'm a thought and everybody has a thought and that you are your thought. No. Thoughts are a part of what moves in the moment. They are not the whole moment. But if you treat your thought as your whole moment, then your karma of the moment has no choice. It's like, okay, this person is inputting this, their attention is on this image, so I will take him there or I will take her there. Do you see? Like the attention will move you where it goes. It's literally like where you aim suggests, imagine a pitcher in baseball, The aim suggests where the ball goes, and it's like your attention suggests where your life force goes. That means if I start paying attention to like pastries, I like that. Imagine like I totally forget like everything I'm doing, and I'm just like, oh my God, how fascinating are pastries. Oh my God, let the taste buds get enlightened, And it would be literally my attention went to that image. Oh my God, is my whole world moving there? So this is where you are the pilot of your moment, and you don't have to settle down or inhabit linguistic structure as the ultimatum of the realm. You free yourself from language, because your eyes deserve what the greatest potential of the species is. That means there were kings back in the day. I would say, like you can totally see this, that the king prepared the way for the future king. The king did not want to be an immortal statue, because the kingdom is why there is a king at all, right? And the kings that forget the kingdom, they become slaves to their own ignorance. They become, in some sense, fools of only their eyes. Or they become the king only in their eyes. They have forgotten. Like when I see like Iran is a country where, for example, mosque and state haven't separated. Right? Church and state haven't separated. And it's not that every country has free will. I mean, it's like a classroom. Every nation in the classroom can dress as it likes, it seems. Right? That seems to be diplomatic approach to our efforts of even developing the United Nations. But the idea is, right, that it's as if, imagine you're wearing a bunch of jackets in summer. Okay, imagine it's super hot and you are wearing like this 12 jackets. right? You know, and people are like, oh my god, why is this person wearing 12 jackets? And the person is like, because while my ancestors wore these jackets, and these jackets will never come off, and I will never experience what it means to be a human being that is free from ideology, from its environment. What that means is the animals back in the day that weren't conscious of themselves, the environment was moving them. And the human beings that are not conscious of themselves, the ideological environment moves them. And it's hard to watch when everybody is a unique DNA, but there's one type of educational system even we're thinking for all of this. That means it's as if like, who has lied to these explorers, 8 billion explorers, you know, of their realm? For how long can the soul watch its mind, watch its body fail? For how long? And you know why people think the lion roars? To scare away to scare away the environment, as if creating a sound explosion in the moment, and every creature in the environment is like, oh my god, what was that sound, and running away, you know? So dinosaurs are implementing, excuse me, what am I saying? Lions are implementing dinosaur strategy, you know? But, so lions are the closest things we have to dinosaurs, I would say. Dinosaur-like behavior. I mean, all animals that make noise ultimately, but anyways, I'm saying the lion roars to scare away its own fear, to declare itself as a player in the actuality of the karmic moment. So you see, people feel like, you know what it is? It's as if before someone learned to build something, or before people learned how to use their hands, it was as if they were being told how to use their hands. And people are like, oh my god, this ideological system tells me to use my hands this way. That ideological system is telling me to use my hands that way, right? And meanwhile, you're not realizing these are not the outside ideology's hands. These are yours. Your hands. Your eyes are here. Live as if your furthest future self fathomable. Live up to the expectation of that. Live up to an unreal, incredibly maxed out, fathomable effort of a self. And I will tell you, everything in life strangely simplifies. You have to extract at times purpose from the void. And those who are honest, it happens for them quickly. Those who are dishonest, it's as if you have to step out of the many simulations created. That means, imagine a lion roaring to itself, but the lion doubts itself, so its roar is like a semi-roar, and the creatures in nature is like, okay, this is a lion, it roared, but why was the roar like that? You know? But the lion that knows its space, it freely roars. It knows it's in the room before the other. This is, I would say, you know, I don't know if anybody has termed it this way, but this is what I would call original consciousness. Or original unconsciousness. That means it's unconditional instead of conditional awareness. If consciousness is conditional awareness, we say unconsciousness is unconditional awareness. That would be liberation. That means it's as if like it's just an overreaction to the tip of the iceberg that is the narrative of human suffering. There's way more going on in this realm, and the best way to salute your future self is by trusting how the universe is being you right now. They call that Satchit Ananda in Vedic thought. Conscious existence is bliss. That means the moment you realize existence is here and consciousness is here, and they are both the here, you access bliss. Life becomes a bliss. Life becomes an incredibly efficient joke. So you're always laughing, in some sense, at the void by being like, oh my God, emptiness, what are you doing with all this matter? You know, like, do you know what I mean? You free yourself from the burden of how your emotions were wielded to a certain image. You free your emotions from image, from geometry of your memories. And when that emotion is free, you can access, I would say, like a crystal, your memory. You realize like the mind field is like a diamond, you know? Speaking of diamonds, it wasn't only hip-hop artists that said diamonds are forever. Zen masters have also been speaking about diamonds being forever, you know? Can you imagine? It's like the Zen masters in the future, they're going to be like, Sensei, what is it's like, give us wisdom. And the Sensei is like, diamonds are forever. And the future is going to interpret it however way it wants to. That means you can say to be or not to be, and that question can become the most deepest philosophical question. Simple observation can just show a crack in the, the realm. Okay, so let's find this Diamond Sutra sayings. Okay, there we go. So let me find the right song. Alright, whatever, let's go with this. A famous verse from the Diamond Sutra, I'm going to read this. It says, so you should view this fleeting world, a star at dawn, a bubble in a stream, a flash of lightning in a summer cold, a flickering lamp, a phantom and a dream. As a lamp, a cataract, a star in space, an illusion, a dewdrop, a bubble, a dream, a cloud, a flash of lightning, view all created things like this. Okay, so that's that. Next website. Alright. So in the Diamond Sutra it says, all conditioned phenomena are like dreams, illusions, bubbles and shadows. Like dew and like lightning, one should contemplate them in this way, okay? If anyone should think that I can be seen among forms, or that I can be sought among sounds, then that person is on the wrong path, and he will not see the Tathagata. So this is a story. One of the disciples spoke up and said, Master, how can behavior like this serve as an example for us? The teacher replied, why can't it serve as an example for you? The disciple pointed at the woman and stammered. Oh, okay, so sorry, I'm reading it from me. Okay, I'm going to read it from the beginning. Once there was a Korean monk named Gyeong Man who was known for his high moral principles. One night he brought back to his room a woman with shoulder-length hair, and the two did not come out for several days. His disciples were baffled, and after a few more days they could not bear it any longer and burst into the teacher's chamber. What they saw was their teacher sitting on the side of the bed, giving the woman a massage. One of the disciples spoke up and said, "Master, how can behavior..." Okay, there we go. "Master, how can behavior like this serve as an example for us?" The teacher replied, "Why can't it serve as an example for you?" The disciple pointed at the woman and stammered, "Don't you see? Don't you see?" The young man replied, "Come and look, come and look." The group of disciples drew in to take a closer look and saw that the woman had no nose, and her ears were gone as well, while her eyes were sunken in. She was a leper, and their teacher was in the process of giving her a special treatment. The young man had kept her from everyone else because her illness was contagious. At that moment, the disciple who had questioned his teacher knelt down in shame and said, "Master, only you are capable of such kindness." Yeah, I mean, of course you gotta do that after that. But anyways, guys, it's just a multidimensional story. It's saying things don't appear as they are. That's it. This website has totally let me down. I thought there was more quotes here. Oh. Arouse the mind without resting it on anything. Make no formed conceptions about the realness of existence, nor about the unrealness of existence, or words like that. Handcuffs will get yeah, there we go. So that's it. Make no formed conceptions about the realness of existence, nor about the unrealness of existence, or words like that. What else? Okay, this isn't from the Diamond Sutra, but this is the Buddha saying to his disciple named Subhuti, and he's saying, this is how the Bodhisattva Mahasattvas master their thinking. However many species of living beings there are, whether born from eggs, from the womb, from moisture, or spontaneously, whether they have form or do not have form, whether they have perceptions or do not have perceptions, whether they have perceptions or do not have perceptions, or whether it cannot be said of them that they have perceptions or that they do not have perceptions, we must lead all these beings to the ultimate nirvana, so that they can be liberated. And when this innumerable, immeasurable, infinite number of beings has become liberated, we do not, in truth, think that a single being has been liberated. Why is this so? Why is this so? If Subhuti, a bodhisattva, holds on to the idea that a self, a person, a living being, or a lifespan exists, that person is not an authentic bodhisattva. That means if you want one thing to exist, it's not being the existence of everything. So if your self-enlightenment is more important than the universal activity, then your enlightenment is only in accordance to the limitations of your inner realm. That means if you are a human being and you're not serving humanity, it's like, what are you doing? Your future self is how in your inner realms where you have dreams and ambitions, you actually can extract an emotion of how you can feel about yourself in the future. Right? We can't be the future in the sense, or the future is being us. Like, we can't be it, but the future is being us. You know, just like how we're being our past. You know, the past is can't be us. The future has nothing to lose. The past, if it wants to continue into the future, has everything to lose. But if we had this notion that we're not continuing, we're not surviving in the fittest way to get to the future, you know, if we had the view that we are teleporting through states of mind, and we are like an invisible jumper. You know, I mean it in the sense of like we are teleporting, jumping through time. We're jumping through how space and time are. I don't know how to say it. The strategy is to get the whole species, I can see it now in my inner realms, the whole species to act naturally, and then we choose to, in some sense, change the design of the context of the worldview. There's no other way. That means Albert Einstein shared the algorithm to world peace. And I don't know if people notice. He said you cannot solve a problem from the same level of consciousness that created it. That means if we look at the world now and it's not peaceful, if we want world peace, it's not going to be with the same eyes. And to just want to have our eyes be like the past is the greatest disservice to the future. So we gotta, our minds have to roar in the unknown, and somehow we develop a global advanced network of communication where it's the hunter-gatherers of the inner realms. No longer a person can be called spiritual. Do you know? We're all just exploring. We are unknown minds moving through known bodies. That means the free will is unknown. There's the hard problem of consciousness. There's like some unanswered questions when it comes to rational acceptance of the realm. Anyways, thanks for listening, and the future already knows this, but rise, mankind, rise.